secret industry meetings, toxic metal levels, congressional subcommittees. Are we talking about a rerun from Madam Secretary? No, actually, we're talking about baby food. And if you've heard about the latest headlines, I wanted to come and answer why we're talking about it, what you need to know, and most importantly, what you should do if you're a parent who's either has been feeding these to your child or is just wondering what to feed your baby going forward. Let's talk about that. Why are we even discussing it right now? So 2019, Healthy Babies Bright Futures put out a report, and they said that a number of baby foods had higher than recommended amounts of heavy metals. Think lead, mercury, cadmium, arsenic. Congress requested more information from 7 companies. 4 gave information. Congress reviewed all that and now released this report last week, which is why we're talking about it. So what did it show? It showed that the levels of heavy metals in some of these baby foods are higher than what we require in other foods and what the FDA even recommends. So how high? I'm gonna give you a couple numbers just so you have some context. The FDA does have requirements for tap water and drinking water and says that the levels of, for instance, arsenic, as an example, must be less than 10 parts per billion. They don't have a requirement for baby foods, although the FDA did recommend last August that it should be under 100 parts per billion for infant rice cereal. What did we find in these foods? Well, up to 500 to 600 parts per billion of arsenic in some of them, namely some of the worst culprits, which were the rice-based foods, rice puffs, rice cakes, and some of those variations of them. The subcommittee did recommend to the FDA that they put in place new actual requirements for baby food. I think that's a good idea. I think it makes a lot of sense. But in the meantime, here's what I want you to know about what it means and what to do going forward. So just to give you some context, these heavy metals exist in the environment. So to a certain extent, we are all exposed to them, either through natural phenomena or human activities like mining and fracking. So as much as we'd like to have zero exposure, it's not going to happen whether we're eating baby food or not. Of course, we want to protect our children, which is the second point, because what studies have shown is that in children who have very high amounts of these heavy metals in their body, that is associated with lower IQ. But the context matters here. When we're looking at those, it's usually from countries that are developing, where they have very high amounts of arsenic and lead in their water. And the amount that they are exposed to in their water on a constant basis throughout their entire childhood is 10 to 100 times higher than the concentration that they would be exposed to in a bag of rice puffs. So just to keep that in context, it's in these high amounts and concentrations that we have seen statistically significant correlations with lower IQ. Does that mean you want to keep feeding your children foods that have these in them? No, of course not. We want to be careful, which is why we're talking about this. But please breathe a sigh of relief. You have not been poisoning your child. If you would like to get your child's levels checked, for instance, with lead levels, many places still check it, not as many places anymore, but that's not a bad idea to talk to your pediatrician to see if it makes sense for your kiddo to get their levels checked. Secondly, what should you do going forward when everything is just poisonous? Some really easy rules here that can help make this a lot easier and eliminate a lot of the potential harmful exposure. So first of all, I want you to avoid what the data showed as the biggest culprits, and that was rice puffs or rice cakes. Now that, of course, is those labeled as rice puffs or others that are rice puffs with flavoring. Say pumpkin and blueberry puffs or sweet potato and carrot puffs. Any of those are rice puff based or rice cake based. The FDA also recommends switching to other grain based cereals instead of rice cereal for your child. You go for an oatmeal, something other than a rice based product. Rule number 2 is variety. I will always remember when I was at Harvard Business School, I had an investment management professor who would always say that the only free lunch from the stock market is diversification. And I think that's a pretty good rule of life, because what we know is if you eat too much of any one thing, if you only eat that one thing and there's some harmful concentration in that one thing, you're going to get more of it. Instead, if you eat a little bit of everything or a variety of different things, then if any one of them has a harmful concentration, you're still not going to likely ingest enough to exceed a harmful threshold. So diversification. I know it's a lot easier just to feed your child the very same snack every single day, but diversification is important. Variety is a spice of life. It'll help your child's taste buds later and also probably keep them safer. thirdly is avoid these kind of combination purees. Again, in this data, we found that some of the ones with higher levels were blueberry, yogurt, multi-berry, different things, or any of those that have 5, 6, 7 ingredients in the puree. Not only could those have higher levels of these toxic metals, they could have higher amounts of preservatives and sugar and any number of those things. So once your child's old enough to get to those multi-combination purees, every once in a while, fine, but not regularly. I would then start talking to your pediatrician about switching them to more kind of a whole foods-based diet. Fourth one, this one's really easy. Healthy Babies, Bright Futures recommended switching from fruit juices, especially like apple juices and fruit juices, just to water. Just that alone can cut your toxic consumption by 68%. So really big deal, really easy thing to do. Just switch them to water. They don't need juices. Next one, when you do purees, then those purees with carrots and sweet potatoes seem to have the highest amounts of arsenic. So sure, you should still have carrots and sweet potatoes. They're important. They're a source of vitamin A and all sorts of other important things. But don't just have carrots and sweet potatoes. Give them green beans or broccoli, any other number of variety of veggies. That way you're going to, again, keep them healthier. There you have it. Hopefully that helps, bringing a little bit of science and sanity to something that was otherwise really kind of a scary headline for all of us parents. So please share this with another parent who was frightened by this headline or just needs to have this information. That's why I'm here, to distill the best data, to answer your thorniest health questions and make your life healthier and richer more easily. I'm Dr. Daria. Take care of yourself, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you next time.